Coach Sanders, welcome to the Football Excellence Podcast. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. I appreciate it, Will. Good to be with you.
Yeah, good to see you. Now, Coach, let's get right into it. You coach across the NCAA. You coach across the NFL. Let's talk about in the NFL specifically. What was the top organization, the top team that you were a part of? You know, what made the coaching staff great? What made the team great? And how was it being a part of that?
In the NFL, all the teams are really good in their own way. They come from different parts of the country. I was in South Florida, of course, in Miami, a different, just a different kind of place. There's a lot of people from the north that come to Miami. So even a lot of our home games there might be our opponents' fans there, but still was great Miami Dolphin fans. And wherever we went, there's going to be Dolphin fans. And then, of course, Green Bay. Franchise owned by the people, was phenomenal. Great place to raise a family. Really enjoyed living up there. Had never lived in the north, so the opportunity to be at a great historical franchise like that. I grew up in North Carolina, but I was a Packers fan, so I got to meet a lot of childhood heroes up. So it was really exciting, Bart Stars and those kind of guys. And so that was really unique to me. And then, of course, in Buffalo, there was just a blue collar, the town was a little depressed, since a lot of the shipping and the motor parts and stuff, had a lot of the industry had left, the steel industry. So, but a lot of great people, blue collar people. So a little bit different atmosphere up there, just by virtue of the fact that the type of area I was in. Then out to Oakland, now all of a sudden I'm West Coast, and just being a country boy from the East, really enjoyed it. You can understand why California, is one of the most beautiful places on on the planet. But Raider Nation now is just a whole different ball game, so it's really fun to be a part of Raider Nation. And then on, to Arizona with the Cardinals in the desert, some completely different again, a franchise that was one of the oldest franchises in football, and just worked for great people there and the fans there. And, we were able to put together a really good team there. So to answer your question, I think they were all really, really good. They were all good in their own way. It was exciting to be there. We took it as a family, as a challenge to go there. And I think as a coach, that's what you do. You take and grow wherever you're planted. That's the big time. That's the spot. That's the place where you want to be. And each of those places, serve that for us in the NFL.
And did you get sick of moving so much? I mean, or did you embrace the moving? Because that's so much a part of the coaching culture is you got to get up and move your entire family and move to another city. But how did you adapt to that?
We looked at it as a kind of an adventure every time we got to go somewhere. And, a new challenge, in the profession, especially in the National Football League, you're going to probably get fired, sooner probably than later. And so it's a reality. So you kind of take that and understand that going in, that it's kind of a reality, and that's kind of what's happening. And so we kind of embraced it, took it as an adventure and as a family. And, and then my kids got a little older and they were out on their own. It was just me and my wife. So, we just enjoyed it and embraced it and, looked at the new opportunity that the Lord had given us and just moved on and tried to make the best of every place we went.
Well, and it takes a special type of wife, right, to live that college football life. I mean, to live that coaching football life, right? I mean,
no question.
During the season, you're gone 60, 70 hours a week, and she's got to run the family and got to be willing to move. I mean, you must have an incredible one.
Oh, no question. I've been married to be 43 years next March, and so we've been a team for a long time. And she certainly is, my best friend, and certainly is my partner, and coaching for us was always a family calling. We felt like the Lord called us to do it, so it was a family calling and trying to be as effective as we could, and to have an impact wherever we went. It takes a whole family to do that, and And yes, she was or is still an integral part of everything we do, and we do it as a team, and we look forward to those the opportunities that happen.
Well, and you talked about it being a calling, Coach. The job demands so much from you, from the hours you put in during season, off season, and even in college, you're recruiting all year round. So talk about your calling and why the amount of effort is worth it for you to use the game of football to lead young men and to really put them on the right trajectory for life.
Well, certainly, that's one of the big things, for me. I really believe the Lord calls the coaches, because today in our society, the coaches have more influence than possibly even pastors or evangelists, because the everyday activity and the ramifications of sport, and how strong it is in the society. So I think it's a great avenue to influence people, and again, you can influence them in a positive way or a negative way. So we try to always do it in a positive way. I felt blessed to be called to be a coach. I tried to be open to every move and to every firing. As a new opportunity, as a new open window. Go somewhere else to try to do something, be the best I be, and hopefully along the way, the influence, the Christian influence, or just the influence of just doing things the right way, having a great attitude, being enthusiastic, all those kind of things about life and about what you do, and trying to be the best that you can be in whatever your calling is. And along the way, sports is an avenue into places that a lot of society can't go. It covers a lot of barriers. A lot of brothers and sisters in Christ, and just brothers and sisters, that you get, around the world just through that avenue of sports, especially football. Football is unique in that lessons you learn are so close to life, the ups and downs in the game, the good things that happen. All of a sudden, there's 5 bad things that happen. How you respond, how you react. Anybody can act like a Christian, or anybody can act like an athlete. How you react in those type of situations is really what matters. And that's what we, hopefully try to instill in our players and along the way. I was fortunate to work with 2 of probably the greatest coaches in modern history, Steve Spurrier and Bruce Arians. And they do things a little bit different. They are truly a faith and family first, and then football. And, we didn't have to stay, every night till, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. Their deal was get your work done and then go home. And if there was any kind of thing with the family, Coach Arians, would be, on their bad list quicker if you missed a soccer game or a recital, a dance recital or something, than if your guys didn't play good in the game. So they were truly guys that proved, and we won big. We were in the NFC Championship game with Coach Arians, and we won a national championship, Coach Spurrier. And then in the AAF, we were leading in the AAF when we were 7-1 and leading that league. We won a championship at Duke. They proved you can do it without having to, go 80, 90 hours a week and, at the expense of your family. You can do it with a family. You can do it being a good dad. You can do it being a good husband. And, again, by involving everybody, my kids, they were always involved. If I had to check rooms at night, they maybe should have been in bed, but they would ride with me, and I'd take them on the road recruiting every, once a year. My kids, even to this day, we sit around at Thanksgiving or Christmas, and, their best memories are of media days and hitting dummies and going to games and bowl games and, those kind of things, not going to Disney World or, something like that we're fortunate enough to do, So, it's been a great experience for us, to live and to work that way.
Absolutely. Well, and along the lines of motivating young men, building team culture, building the habits to overcome adversity when things go wrong. I mean, are there any quotes or phrases or even biblical verses? Because I know you have a great background in that you like to use with your team that kind of sum up what you're about.
Well, I think, one thing my dad always instilled in me, and I always try to instill it in the guy that coaches, is your attitude determines your altitude. There's a million sayings in athletics, and they're all good, about being tough and keeping going and all those kind of things. But when your attitude is right, your enthusiasm's right, your encouragement is right, your care for people is right, your motivation is right, and it all comes back to your attitude. So that to me does determine the altitude that you fly. And we always wanted to fly high and to be the best that we could be. And we don't want to be a turkey sitting on the 33rd row of a turkey convention. We wanted to be flying high like an eagle. And just being the best we could. And I think that encompasses a lot of things in athletics that are all good. Like I say, the encouragement, the character of wanting to be the best you can be. Your motivation. Hey, I'm going to be the best I can be for you. It's a kind of a different slant on motivation, but when you have the right attitude, your motivation is more toward your teammate rather than just yourself. It's just a whole different realm and a whole different way to think about things.
Right. I mean, it seems like when you have those athletes and those leaders on the team that buy in and get their peers to buy in, that's when you have the ultimate team chemistry, which also ultimately leads to the championships, right?
Right. No question. And that's what we, spend a lot of time with. And I would encourage any coach around the world to do this, to look at the great teams. And when you hear Michael Jordan or, any of those great players talk about, even the Ryder Cup teams in golf, when you hear them talk about the things that make that team great, it's not necessarily, well, everyone was a great player and had their best day ever. In fact, some of the best teams that we had weren't championship teams, but some of the teams that were championship teams, we were good. Don't get me wrong. We had good players, but, the 96 championship team, at Florida, national championship team at Florida, we had Danny Werfel and Ike Hilliard and all those guys, the leadership that they had and the love and the care for one another, the things that really meant something as a team were not necessarily, hey, this guy had X number of sacks and this guy had this X number of tackles and he caught this many balls. It was that, but it was also more than that. And when you study those teams, I always encourage our guys, hey, look at what's making the team great. Listen to what those guys are saying, and let's get that on our team. In 1989 at Duke University with Coach Spurrier, we won the first championship they'd won at Duke in 70-some years. We were co-champs in the ACC. And on that team, we had one guy on defense that made second team all-conference. That was it. But it was just a bunch of guys. In fact, I went to a reunion last fall, of the guys, and those guys, probably almost 60 of those guys and 7 or 8 of the coaches from that team showed back up, for this reunion at a game because they still loved each other. They still talked about the funny stories and the funny things we used to say and all those kind of things. But it was the love that they shared for each other and the belief that they could do it. When nobody else said they could, the belief that they had, the care for each other, and then they played no matter what. When the going got tough, when we got down, we just kept playing. We just kept playing, and we kept playing, and try not to look at the scoreboard until the end of the game. And it's that kind of attitude that the great teams are made of. So I would challenge people to study great teams and see what they say is part of making them a great team. It's not Michael Jordan hit 19 shots at the buzzer. It was never that. It was about how they cared about each other, how they loved each other, and how they were friends on and off the field, and they were brothers. They supported each other. They had each other's back. I mean, it was those kind of things that make great teams, and the great teams that we were on. In 07 in Green Bay, we were in the NFC Championship game, and we were led by Charles Woodson and Al Harris and Nick Barnett and Nick Collins. All those guys, they truly cared about each other. We had a 13-3 season and ended up losing to the Giants in overtime in the NFC Championship game. I think they went on to beat the Patriots. But, the point being, it was one of those teams where guys truly, like you say, bought into not only the schemes and things, but bought into the fact that, hey, I got to hear about you. I can depend on you. You can depend on me. Not only on the field, but off the field. If you need something, you need to help us to move it. If you need us to help you move a refrigerator, hey, we're just a phone call away, or whatever it may be, we're there. And I think that's what great teams, and I think that's what one thing that sports does. It transcends racial barriers. It transcends economic barriers. It transcends ethnic barriers, countries, whatever it may be. Athletics can transcend that because it's deeper than just, the political end of it. It's more than that. It's people caring about people.
Absolutely. And that group of people from all these different backgrounds working towards one single goal, grinding day in and day out to only play 12 games a year. I mean, that's what's so special about it. And even me, I went to the University of South Dakota, an FCS school. We had guys from the hood of Florida, and then we had prep school, wealthy kids from Chicago, the guys from California, and just that mix of people, the fact that we can get along and grind and be brothers. I mean, it's such a special brotherhood to have for life.
No question. It really is. It really is.
And so, as far as getting those guys to buy in, how did that differ between the NFL and college ball for you? Because it's obviously different incentives for the players. I mean, NFL, these guys are supporting their families. They're making a lot of money versus college. They're still younger men. They're still trying to figure out life, and they're still trying to make a name for themselves.
Well, really, what it comes down to is coaching is exactly the same. Just the issues that you have to deal with from high school, which I started in high school, to college, little different issue. They're away from home. Now there may be a wife or a kid involved. Whereas now the NFL, they're, their families, they're off away from home. They got money than they ever had. So there's just different issues. The bottom line comes down to coaching. It doesn't matter what level it is. Guys want to know that what you have is trying to help them on all areas of their life. If they know that they don't care what you know until they know that you care. That's an old saying in coaching. Players don't really care what you know until they know that you care. And then once they know that you care, now if they think that and they believe that you're really trying to help them, you have their best interest at heart. I had guys that were so mad at me because I would make them sign a weekly commitment. Say your signatures, you sign this weekly commitment. Say you're going to class every day, you're going to stay every day, and you're going to hand in your work. Don't sign it. But they would sign it, and they would smack that we have to get up every day, go to class. And there was one guy who was flunking out of school that ended up getting a degree. And to this day, he always says, "Hey, coach, I didn't like it at the time, but I knew that you cared enough for me to make me do it." So I think when guys know that you care enough about them, I think that's the bottom line in coaching. It is not. If you're going to get into people business, you got to expect people problems. You're not manufacturing cardboard boxes. If you're going to complain and whine and bellyache about when it starts to rain a little bit, then you need to find another job. Because this is a people business, and where there's people, there's going to be situations that you have to respond to. And I think people, players especially, it doesn't matter what level. I coach Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers, Zach Thomas, Junior Seau. Those guys, they want to be helped. If they felt like that they were being helped in their skill and in their profession, then there were a whole more talk to listen to. You would be right. And it's just common sense that as a coach, if you eliminate your self-pride and say, "Hey, I'm here to help you," then it doesn't matter. My first high school team, one of the teams I always remember when I got out of college, I was a defensive coordinator at a brand new high school. I started at 9th grade on defense. We did not have a senior on the team, and we went 5-5. And that was one of the greatest seasons ever. I mean, some of the biggest wins in my career, you know, at this high school because of what we went through. And those guys on that team, they still say, "Hey, coach, I remember you taught us this or you did that." I still run into them because I'm back near my hometown now. So I still run into those guys occasionally, and they say, "Hey," or now it's, "Hey, my father-in-law played for you and such and such and such," you know. So, so those things, mean something, you know. So I think it doesn't, if guys think you're trying to help them, then, the coaching on all those different levels, again, it is different. Most 98% of the guys are phenomenal. But the problem is, like in everything else, you hear about the 2%. It's like young people, 98% of them are great, but all you ever hear about is the 2%. You don't hear about the 98%.
Right.
And, the 2% that's causing all the problems, that's what you hear about. So 98% of the guys in the NFL and in college and in high school, to me, in my experience, were phenomenal because they knew where my heart was. And I think when your heart's in the right place, I think, the chance of you being effective goes way up.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and shifting a little bit, Coach, you spent many years as a position coach at those different levels, and then you elevated to a defensive coordinator. What is the role like as a defensive coordinator in the NFL, and what's the pressure like? I mean, it just seems like an immense job trying to stop the most brilliant minds in the sport of football. You know what I mean? So what is that like?
It definitely is, but again, it comes down to, believing in your product, just like, you believe in, your company and the things that it does. I'm sure there's immense pressure against other agents or whatever, telling guys to do this or that and the other, when you're trying to do it your way because you believe in what you're doing. And I think it's the same way as a defensive coordinator. I was taught by some of the best names in football, the Bobby Stoops, the Richard Bells, the Dow Sheelys, the Dave Wannstedts, who, learned from Jimmy Johnson, some of those kind of guys. So the product that we had, we felt like, that we were prepared to do what we needed to do. And I think a lot of things, just like you tell our players, when you're prepared, it takes a little bit of the pressure off. Now, naturally, this 3rd and 1, and you got to have a stop or 4th and 1, or, you're calling a zero blitz at 4th and 1, and that's the winning game, so, there's some situations that are, and for me to say that, I didn't feel pressure sometimes, I certainly did, because being at a storied program like Green Bay and following some of the, the legends that have been there, and then matching wits with, the Peyton Mannings or the Tom Bradys or, certainly, all people in the NFL. But, when you prepare it as best you can, then it, it's like taking a test, you study hard for it, then, you're confident going in. And if you don't, then, you're a little bit nervous about it, so most of the time I would say going in, and we believed in what we believed in. And when the problem started, even our guys would come to me and say, "Hey, Bob, man, get us back to the base. Just get back to the base," because we knew where we, what our base was. We knew what we could do. We understood it. We knew if something broke down, there were a number of times a run to break down, and they'd come to the sideline. I wouldn't have to say, "Hey," I wouldn't have to ask the guy to come, "Hey, coach, it was me. I got reached. I was out of my gap." Guys would take ownership and, believe it was something up, and believe in what we were doing. So there was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of pressure because mainly on myself, because I wanted to be the best that I could be. As far as from the outside, source, I just tried to be me. I didn't throw anybody under the bus. I took a lot of heat sometimes for not placing blame, but that didn't do any good to anybody that plays blame. That didn't help us win. It didn't make anybody a better player. So I would just say, "Hey, I should have got him in that, that position a little bit better," or whatever it might be. So the point being, there was a lot of pressure. there was a lot of things I couldn't control. Like I could control who the GM traded or or what happened. So, there were a lot of things that were out of my control, so I couldn't worry about those things. And if I worried about those things, it prevented me from being the best I could be on the things that I could control, which was trying to learn tendencies and trying to get the guys to understand what we were trying to do and how we planned on trying to stop somebody, and with things. It was a tough loss, and we're in overtime in Lambeau, -4 or 5 degrees with Brett Favre. I mean, I'm thinking I'm going to the show, and and then we end up the Giants got an interception. We ended up stopping them. It was 4th and 10. They didn't gain an inch, but they kicked a field goal from right there where they had intercepted, so kind of a tough way to go being that close in overtime at home, with Favre, but still. And then the next year, I got fired the next year. We were 13-3, actually ended up 14-4. Ended up getting fired the next year. There was no one to blame. Mike McCarthy and I are still good friends, and I understand it's a business decision. He wanted to change defenses, and just like I told him, I said, hey, if I have a heart attack, I'm going to a t-shirt. I know we can operate, but not that thing going. I can fix what we do, and I'm not sure. If you want to make a change, in defense, you need to get somebody that's an expert in what you want to do. So I cared enough about him to be honest with him. And so I always appreciate his friendship and his. He gave me that opportunity.
Well, and Coach, you talked about how you when things kind of got out of control, you always went back to your base. What became your base later in your career, and how did your base defense change, from earlier in your career to towards the end of it?
Well, a lot depends on the way what's happening in football. Football's changed. It's a lot different now than it was when I first started. It's a lot different now than it was at my mid-career. It was a lot different. Some of the defenses, the idea on defense was always to stop the run, number one, of course, try to make them one-dimensional, and then disrupt the quarterback. Early on in especially my professional career, we disrupted the quarterback by being bump and run and sticking to receivers and making them hold it for that half a second longer. And we would end up, in the top, 6 or 7 in sacks because our guys could hold on. Now, if you watch the tape, you say, oh, man, there's 3 guys open, but it was after I got stopped, Or if we did not get a good rush, then chances are they may complete a pass, So it worked hand in hand. Then later on in my career, that kind of went by the wayside a little bit because it got to be vogue to be a blitz-type team. Bear, the Buddy Ryan, the blitzes, Rex, and those guys. So I kind of learned the Todd Bowles schemes there in Arizona with James Betcher and Bruce, and actually came more of a scheme where early on it looked like we were so simple. And in fact, I was visiting with one of my best friends who was not coordinator, and we played them and beat them. And I said, okay, to be honest with me, you think, well, when we were bumping and running and just rushing, weren't blitzing a lot. He said, I'd come to work at 8, and heck, I was at home at 5:30 or 6 because I knew exactly what you were going to do. But he said on Sunday, it was an all day because y'all would show one thing, and all of a sudden y'all be trapping us. We'd think you're in quarters match, and all of a sudden you're in 2 match, or we couldn't get a beat on you. So Sunday was the long day. Right. On the blitz type guys, he told me, they may be in at 6 in the morning till 12 at night, but by Saturday they could maybe get a little bit of beat on you. And then Sunday was a little bit easier because they could, have a little bit of chance to know exactly where you were coming from. But just different philosophies. They were both great. I enjoyed both of them. Probably at the end of my career, like in the AAF with Apollo, I was kind of a combination of the two. Became not quite as much full match, but still quarters. And 4-man rush, but then because of that league, you could only bring 5. So just devised ways to get 5. With a lot of the concepts that I had learned through, the Todd Bowles lineage of guys, that I had learned along the way through those guys.
That's phenomenal. And and so who was the I mean, you talked about some of the coaches already, but who was the biggest coach influence in your life at any level of football?
I would say again, starting out, Richard Bell used to be the head coach of South Carolina. He was our defensive coordinator at Duke. Of course, Bobby Stoops from Oklahoma. He was with us at Florida. Just a great defensive mind. Dave Wanstatt, Jim Bates. Of course, even a great offensive mind that helped us on defense. Coach Spurrier. How could you not? Having worked for him for 15 years, so I learned a lot just, going against him, and then things that he saw that he would come in and say, hey, why don't you guys do this? And it made sense, even technique wise sometimes. Or Bruce Arians, certainly learned, a lot from those guys. I mean, Dal Shealy was our head coach at Richmond. Steve Sloan was our head coach at Duke before Coach Spurrier came. It just goes, there's just so many. I've been so blessed and fortunate to have so many mentors that poured their heart into me, and I saw how guys could be a professional, and I don't mean an NFL coach, but a coach, a professional coach, be a coach and still be a family man, be a husband. I saw, what it looked like with feet on it. I saw what it looked like in the, moving, so not only did I learn a lot from those guys, Coach Spurrier and Bruce and Coach Wanstatt, but also, even the coordinators that work with Jim Bates and George Edwards and James Betcher, John Hoke. I mean, I can go on and on, Ron Zook. I could just, I learned something from everybody, because as a coach, you always have to put your pride down and learn something from everybody. Now, it may solidify what you're doing. You may agree with it, or you may say, hey, I don't agree with that. It just solidified in my mind what I'm doing, I think is correct, so, but I've just been so fortunate, and that's why I have a heart for coaches now, because so many people poured into me. I've got some high school buddies here in Eastern North Carolina. They'll, I'll go visit with their staff, or, if I can volunteer for FCA, I go to Black Mountain, North Carolina every year, for the Fellowship of Christian Athletes camp for, it's a coaches family camp. So it's family oriented, but it's coaches. You can pour into the families of coaches. They say, Coach, how, you've been fired so many times, how do you do it? Or, how did you move? I mean, same questions, and just to be able to pour into coaches' lives like people poured into me, and I try to do it the right way, because I've been blessed. So I try to do it the way I think God wants me to do it, because he blessed me with that opportunity. So now I want to try to bless somebody else. I've been blessed to be a blessing. And so that's why I try to pour into coaches as much as I can.
That's beautiful. Well, and Coach, as we come to a close here, I like to always ask the guests, do you have a book that you would recommend to the readers, to the coaches, to players? Is there one that you can recommend?
Well, certainly any book. I mean, Tony Dungy's got so many great books.
Yes.
I would recommend any book by Tony Dungy or John Wooden, Pat Summitt, one of the great coaches of all time, the basketball coach, one of the greatest winners. But I would just challenge guys, if you don't, I would challenge you to read the Bible, because in the Bible, you're going to find a primer for coaching. You're going to find a playbook. And if you use that as your playbook, like you require your players to use it as a playbook, to understand it and to put into practice the things that are in the playbook, which it all comes down to love. And love is an action word. A bell's not a bell until you ring it. A song's not a song until you sing it. Love in your heart's not put there to stay. Love's not love until you give it away. And that's what the Bible talks about. And if you love people like you should, and you treat other people's kids like they're your own kids, and you love them like God calls us to love each other, then your coaching will change. Your marriage will change. Your being a son or a daughter will change. Things will change in your life for the better, and it will make you not only a better coach, but a better person, a better uncle, a better dad, a better husband, a better brother, whatever it may be. You'll be better off for it. So I would challenge guys, stick to the playbook, the Bible. A guy told me the acronym for Bible, the BIBLE is the basic instructions before leaving earth. And there's a lot of truth in that. So I would challenge guys to do that.
Yes, sir. I like the acronym. I've never heard that before. That's awesome. Well, Coach, if people want to reach out to you, do you have social media, or how can people reach out to you if
I can give you my email. I'm old school, man. I had to call you to get on Zoom. You know that. I mean, come on, man. But I'm an old dog.
Sounds good.
Certainly, my email is b.sandune, all lowercase, b.sandune7@gmail.com.
Excellent. And I'll include that in the notes of the show as well. So thank you so much, Coach Sanders. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. I hope you take care and stay safe during these crazy times. And that's another wrap of the Football Excellence podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. We greatly appreciate your support. Have a fantastic day. See you next time.